Hello and welcome, NecoAV here, and it's going to be a video where I talk about, um, the thing is that with this video, there's going to be about the whole thing of, being open-minded and such, and the kind of traps that exist that kind of hold us back from being open-minded. I'm someone who likes to challenge himself with, like, different ideals of others and stuff like that. Don't want to stick into my comfort zone because I do feel like there is a bit of a mental atrophy that happens when you do so. I don't want to have myself fall into some sort of psychological atrophy like I've seen with others, and it has in a sense happened to me a little in the past. But the problem of doing this is that you tend to come across a lot of bad ideas, and I do see this happen with a lot of people. Um, like, and a lot of people have gotten into trouble with this. I'm not going to name names though, because there is a fact that might just cause people to go on the attack against certain people. And I'd rather not do that, even if it's someone that I firmly and strongly disagree with, even if I think that person's in the wrong with their ideals. Now, what I'm talking about is that it's easy to fall into these traps because it turns into self-flagellation, and there is no way of really, you can't really improve yourself through self-flagellation. All you're doing is abusing yourself. And I know some people may crack the joke about difficult ideas, be like, emotional damage, and it's like, no, it's serious. This can cause like brain fog in a lot of people because it can eat at you. And no, I'm saying brain fog and not brain rot. Those two are completely different things. But of course, those still lead to some form of mental atrophy. But yeah, the thing that I find frustratingly difficult is how the algorithms of today do tend to funnel people into what some would refer to as these rage silos. You're given some sort of article or some sort of video with an opinion of someone that has said something that would just get you angry and get you frustrated. And while sometimes it's like it's grifters, and yeah, it's easy to spot a grifter because they're looking to make money or they're looking to grab as much attention as possible from you. And of course, with a lot of them like really making full use of SEO or search engine optimization, they end up getting easy. It ends up becoming way too easy to accidentally happen upon them. If anything, I would say those who do that are worse than the brain rot that's out there. The AI images and stuff like that. Because of, yeah, you get stuck in this perpetual state of anger, and you end up whipping yourself up like a raging Taurus. I know not a lot of people know Pokemon or read the Pokedex, but yeah, it's basically a bull that whips itself into an anger so it can continue fighting. So yeah, and that's what I see a lot of people do. A lot of people becoming these raging Tauruses because they are getting whipped up in this rage and not realizing they are being led away from whatever and going into these psychological death spirals. And while, yeah, the grifters are kind of easy to spot, then there's those that are not as easy, which are people who follow the idea, who are raging Tauros themselves. But even then, sometimes some of such people can be easily spotted. I remember there's one guy, not going to name names, who decided to threaten another person with a gun on camera, and the person he was threatening in response, showed his guns and gave a bit of a lesson on proper protocol and stuff like that, which was interesting. A lot of people memed on that. Obviously, you know who I'm talking about. If you don't, then don't worry about it. Point is, yeah, those who are like this, who are followers, they also tend to pick fights with people. And the thing is, if you get drawn into that, you end up picking fights with others as well. So it isn't just the whole thing of scarring yourselves for no reason, but also the fact that you end up scarring others. And this is probably a big reason why we have a lot of problems with society, you know, people who are too busy scarring themselves and scarring others to realize that there's literally no reason for all the scars in the first place. But then there is the third type. Now, these are the people, they don't blindly follow. They are very much aware of what's going on. And they're not in it to get your attention or get money, but they are in it because, and they're not even narcissists, because narcissists also fit into the grifter category. They are people who want their ideas out there, you know? They firmly believe, they find an idea, it aligns with what they believe, and then they put that out there and they argue strongly. And the thing is, if you're trying to be a free thinker, you know, there's going to be a part of you that's going to be like, okay, let's consider what this person has to say. The problem is this goes into a trap, you know? And yeah, and I know the video is going to be titled My Thoughts on the Free Thinker's Trap, because that's what this is. Okay, you got these people who, some of whom are highly bigoted, you know, they have their ideals to reinforce whatever prejudice they hold, and no matter how many facts you provide to prove that no, their ideals are wrong and the prejudices they hold are wrong, they're still going to turn to those ideas and say, yes, this is right. They're going to say their prejudice is justified, their stereotyping is justified. And that is basically the essence of a bigot, you know? Rather than listening to reason as to why prejudice is wrong and stereotyping is wrong, they'll turn to ideals and deny facts. And it's just facts they deny, they also deny truth. And for those people who don't know, the difference between a truth and a fact is that a fact is simply information that's yet to be proven false. At least that's what I was taught in high school. I think it was high school. I forgot which of my science teachers it was, but it was definitely an interesting lesson that had a positive impact on me. And which is something that I should have done with. But yeah, a lot of these people can be very angering, very raging. And that in turn goes into another one, because like sometimes it is a self-guilt thing, but other times it's just the fact that you know these people exist, you know, and you know that these people are going to have their followers who's going to follow along, not understand what the person's even talking about, but instead just go on and on with the rage. And next thing you know, you have everyone whipping each other up. You know, it isn't just self-flagellation, but also the flagellation of others. You know, once again, you have a whole bunch of raging Tauruses that are just chasing after phantoms. And of course, anyone who knows Pokemon knows that if you use rage against a ghost type, you're not going to hurt the ghost type. That's just how it is, you know? And it's the same in real life. You know, you're chasing these phantoms, these ideals from people who are probably long gone, who have no idea what reality is or have no knowledge of what we know today to be true. And so you got raging at each other, raging at the ideals held by long gone people. And the unfortunate thing is that with everyone raging, there is no time to really stop it, you know? And then sometimes the best thing one can do is to steel oneself. And yeah, there I go again with Pokemon references. Been a long time since I played a Pokemon game. But besides the point. Besides the point. But yeah, one should steel themselves so they don't get caught up in the rage. But the difficult thing is that you also run the risk of closing yourself off to others. And if you close yourself to others, you also end up doing your own sort of self-flagellation, you know. So what does one do in this sort of situation? Well, best thing I could suggest is think critically, you know. Not just think critically, but also do something that I do, which is that, you know, sometimes you gotta turn everything off and go out for a walk, you know. And I'm not saying go off for a walk while your phone is plugged in and while you have your headphones plugged into the phone and then listening to videos. Because, I mean, okay, granted, if you want to listen to like music, white noise, ASMR, and do that as a means of relaxation, you know, that's fine, you know. Sometimes you need something to ease yourself from the pain that is induced from all the unnecessary lashes. But one also needs to have critical minds, you know, and be aware, you know, try to find ways to not just identify the bigotry that's going on, but also try not to get caught up in it, you know, because when you start to raging, you end up chasing after phantoms, and as said, you can't hurt a phantom, you can't hurt a ghost with rage. So that's what I have to say with this video. I am Neko AV. I thank you for watching. And do try to be kind to each other. Do try to be understanding. Understanding doesn't mean agreeing with people, because sometimes the worst thing you can do for yourself is to agree with all the prejudice that's out there. You know, understand it, dissect it, and if people are not willing to understand what they're doing is wrong, don't get into a fight with them, because it's just going to be a losing battle. You know, just as how you can't win a boxing match against a raging bull, you're not going to convince these people otherwise. And they would have to take a long, hard look at themselves and convince themselves. It's not up to you to do that. So yeah, and that's it for my video. Again, thank you for watching.